What is up, guys? We are live here with the Late Slate Sweat and Swap Show, taking you through the last hour of NBA basketball in the day. We got ourselves a two-game night slate that we need desperately to get some news on, and also a showdown slate that we need desperately to get some news on, so hopefully it'll come through soon. But I'm Chris Spags, joined by a man you know and love, a man who I'm going to be seeing a lot less when the MLB season rolls around next week as this show starts to wind down. But he's going to be here today, bringing you the best takes and his own energy and charm as always. Your old pal EMac. How are you doing, EMac?
I'm doing good, but I'm just seeing some news here, Chris. We're going to be without the services for the rest of the night with Kendrick Nunn, who's out with an ankle injury. Jason Tatum on the bench with a knee injury, so that's kind of a pain. And as you mentioned, the crux of the entire slate is waiting on Mr. Sexton. Are they bringing Sexton back?
Get them all out of your system over the next however many shows. I guess is this the last Late Slate show you're doing, actually?
Yes, I will be moving to the MLB Overnight podcast.
Yeah, some exciting stuff coming up here. EMac going to do his own version of the slate starter for MLB, and
we will have video for that. I did want to point that out for that, but it won't be. I don't think we'll be live. We'll see. Is our Rinpack and Eric live? Do you know? I think they're. I don't think
they're live. They're pre-recorded. That they're live to tape. I think, but
right. Yeah.
So we'll talk
on air production creative meeting with two people that aren't on the same show together. So.
Hey, got to make it count somehow. But we're going to talk about the late slate here. As always, we'll have two money times because we got the showdown and the main night slate coming up, which the ownership projections are only going to be so good because we need this Colin Sexton news desperately. He is a game time decision. There has been no indication for what I've seen anywhere. Our news god does not have anything either thus far. So first of all, if you are ever looking for news, make sure to follow at Awesemo NBA. You're getting last minute or really up to the minute updates about all day long, all the NBA news, all the injuries, all the machinations going on, guys downgraded, guys upgraded. You're getting all that news on at Awesemo NBA. So make sure to follow that on Twitter. And I guess, EMac, we could start to talk about the late slate in a minute here, but let's talk quickly about the main slate where, for me, I mentioned on all the shows that I did today, or really, I guess, the tip-off in particular, and I know Greg was on the same page with Live Before Lock, that Michael Carter-Williams to me for Orlando looked like a play that was going to be undervalued. He was going to be a little bit higher owned on FanDuel, but he got last minute news that he was scratched from the starting lineup, still ended up playing some minutes. And then the announcers, as he's on the floor, I guess it was a stomach ailment because the announcers are basically talking around, referring to the fact that he got the poopies for himself and having a tough half, but still played enough minutes, EMac, that Chase and Randall became a garbage play for the most part, as well as Kareem Manet, another young player at the Magic have, who these guys both expected to get some minutes, would have gotten more minutes if Carter Williams weren't in. And I know, EMac, you told me before the show that you weren't necessarily stuck in the MCW milieu that I am, but how are your lineups looking? Is there anybody particularly hurting you or making you feel good about yourself today?
So James Harden, I'm happy with, but I have 28%. The field has 44 on DraftKings. So that's not the best. Giannis, I went 44. I'm assuming he's quite a bit less than that on the field. He has 33 DK points right now. I think they're heading into they're midway through the fourth quarter on that one. Just hasn't really been his night. I have a nice 69% of Jalen Brunson. He's not doing a whole lot. Trevor Ariza at 25%, looking good with 25 points. CJ McCollum at 57% with those same 25 points. Not quite as good. So we'll see what happens. I did limit myself on a lot of the Orlando Magic. My main slate lineups, I limited them to 3 per roster. And I tried to not go over the field at all. And I was trying to go between 10 and 15% for each of them, because I knew once I started picking through my lineups, I would end up closer to 25% of them. And so my whole thing was, I didn't think they had enough players to have a competent offense. Broke that down in the DFS building blocks. We've seen that time and time again. They were missing 4 starters that were shipped out. So the only people left that have started any of the last 5 games were Michael Carter-Williams and Jason Randall, who were splitting the point guard duties. And then really off the bench, they're very shorthanded because they've had so many injuries. So it was one of those where I just didn't feel great about it. And the matchup was a pristine one, but who do they have that's going to be an offensive threat? And they were just missing. I mean, they traded half of their rotation away yesterday or the day before. So I figured they'd get around 100 points, like 100 points, not 110 or 120 or like 105, like 100. So we'll see. I don't think that's going to make or break my night either way, but it's just kind of interesting to see how heavy some people did go on him. And then I completely bailed off of Michael Carter-Williams. I only had 3% of him on DraftKings, so that wasn't that hard to do.
Yeah, I ended up with no Michael Carter-Williams, swapping around here. I was actually about to walk my dogs. My girlfriend and I usually take a tandem walk on Fridays where we each get one dog. It's a lovely bonding activity. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll go a little early today because it does seem like there's any news coming. Thankfully, did wait around, just knowing how the NBA goes. Savvy host you have here and me from just doing this every day this year and being beaten down like a hostage. But I did stay around, had to swap around Michael Carter-Williams. The good news for me right now, EMac, on FanDuel, I have one lineup projected for 410, and that is all reliant on Magic players. If Dwayne Bacon has a nice day, if James Ennis continues playing well, if Kem Birch at under 10% ownership has a good day, then you will see me very happy with my FanDuel performance. And Jalen Brunson, really the other part holding me back there. So that's the sweat part of the show today, where I felt like I made a couple of really nice FanDuel lineups, changed up my sorting process on FanDuel, finally built myself a little sheet that pulls in about 1,500 projected lineups that I got in today on Fantasy Cruncher, and then sorted it on there. And that's I know Josh aims for 2,000. I figured, why not? I'll do 500 less than Josh because I'm 500 lineups better than that guy. And no, I feel good about it, but we'll see how it goes. And certainly when you're dependent on chalk plays, I am not alone in my desire for Jalen Brunson and these Magic guys to do well. But EMac, we have no news about this late slate. And I think we need to talk about it a little bit, though, because maybe we'll plan to contingencies here where we do not know Colin Sexton's availability now. I haven't even built my late slate lineup right now or before the show because I just think it's a very important one that I don't even want to look at it unless I know whether Sexton is playing or not. But EMac, let's assume Sexton plays. I think Cleveland is mostly unusable to me. If so, the minutes projection that Awesemo has in right now does reflect Sexton being in and playing close to his usual run at 35 minutes. And if that's the case, I think you can get to Larry Nance, but even that, I don't have a ton of confidence in. I would like him a lot more if Sexton were out. So what are you getting, EMac? If we assume that Sexton is in, what would you get from Cleveland?
So I'm kind of looking at this. So I'm at first I'm looking at the DK tier. So I'm playing both formats as we go in. So the nice thing about having, I'm going to keep Colin Sexton in these lineups because I can still pivot to Darius Garland and Larry Nance, who are in that same late game, same team. So by the way, if he's out, those guys by proxy get a little bit better, particularly Garland. So I'm okay with that. If I'm looking at this from the other side of it, I'm looks like I'm either going to do 20, and if they open another contest, I'll do 40 lineups there. I may just take him out of the player pool and then see if I can get him back in a few lineups otherwise, because the hard part is you're absolutely right. If he's out, the other players become better. I don't want to have chosen other players instead of him and not be able to go. Or if he finds us out and I've got Sexton, I don't want to be dancing that way. I'd rather turn some of my players into him than go the other way, just because I'm worried I may end up in some of those lineups because I'm not setting any rules to protect it from it. But I may end up with leaving salary on the table or hemming myself into a particular Laker combination that I'm not fond of. So I'm gonna go the other way. I just have a feeling he's out tonight. It's a complete guess. Yeah, this is a complete guess.
Certainly something that has been the case at times where a player being out will, occasionally mean that they're going to be a little bit higher likelihood of being out again. And, he was marked as questionable during the day. And then I think a report came out that it's a game time decision. So I'm treating it more like he's a true game time decision, because I think if he were out right now, I don't see how you would build a late slate lineup without putting in Darius Garland, at least one of Garland, one of Allen, one of, I think, Larry Nance too does benefit. So having some possessions, Cedi Osman too, another guy who becomes materially different, where he's 4,600 for the slate right now. And then if, he's not playable, I think in this current iteration where he's about a 4x value, I'd have him at. But if you have Sexton being out, a few more minutes and just more usage for Osman, he's in play. So I guess that's really the one news item that we need the most. But EMac, the bigs, I feel like are one spot. Go ahead.
I have insight. Now, if you remember, we sort of had something like this, and I can't remember who the player it was for, but it was the Thunder. And they had some random it's not even really a beat writer. It's like one of those, newspapers aren't really newspapers anymore, right? So this is Chris Fedor, he had blue check mark, 42,000 followers, Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. He's hosted 23 of the Fan. I don't know if he's traveling with the team, but he does. This is his tweet from 14 minutes ago. Sexton, who is a game time decision because of a hamstring soreness, just wrapped up his pregame workout here at the Staples Center. He did not seem all that pleased afterwards. He's now working with strength coach Derek Millender. So that makes me lean a little bit more towards no, but I don't know if this guy's if he's doing a radio broadcast, is he traveling with the team? Is he just watching close circuit? I don't know the whole deal around that, but I don't think he's going to tweet that out without at least a little bit of basis. So my guess is, let's call it 65-35 that he sits.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to interpret it. And the other day on the Late Slate Show, we had Greg, our pal Greg Ehrenberg, Nerd Ass Greg, looking at James Harden pregame video and trying to figure out how his neck looked, and said, and conversely, he did say that he was smiling, looked happy, and he did play in that game. That was not the Utah night that he didn't play, but the other one. So I think in this spot, I'm willing to go a little bit more erring on that side, just because I think the opportunity is still so big for Garland. Last game, put up 20 shots, assisted at a high level. Larry Nance had one of his best games as well. And I think that's a little bit less of a hard to pin down situation. But I think really the net result for me is that less possession for Sexton means the ball going around a bit more, guys like Nance getting to create from the elbow, from the top of the key, whatever the case may be. So I think there is a big trickle down. Garland's an obvious one, but Nance, I think, is playable right now, gets very playable if you see Sexton out. And Allen, I think his minutes are unaffected. The good news for him is that there's no Isaiah Hartenstein. He's not available for the team. So you're going to have Dean Wade playing backup center. But Allen, I think EMac, even with all that, I just don't think Allen looks like a good play on his own if Sexton were in. And I think you could sort of justify it a bit more if Sexton's out, because Allen's probably going to up a few more shots in that case. But let's say EMac that Sexton somehow makes it in here on that first assumption. Give me your take here on Allen if Sexton is in, and then if he's out.
I'm fine with Jarrett Allen either way. It doesn't really matter. And that's just because there's no LeBron, there's no Davis, there's, no Dwight Howard because he's no longer with the team. And only Dwight Howard could get tossed out of the game. The most childish player in the league still, as he rounds into his mid-30s. You keep doing you, Dwight. So I'm okay with Jarrett Allen under any situation, just because there's not a ton of alternatives. It's either going to be James Wiseman from Golden State, or it's going to be Clint Capella, and I'm fine with him in all formats on all sites for this one. We have not seen the dynamic games we would have liked to have seen out of him recently, but we'll see. Now, does he defer to his teammate, who may be familiar with the Forum, the Staples Center, wherever they play now? That's right. Larry Nance is back. I had to get one more in, Chris. I had to get one more. Remember me? No, because no one's on the team from when you were on the team. So
I'm sure he's still part of him. Doesn't love leaving the Lakers, as most of these guys, for the most part, don't love the Lakers. But EMac loves to get remember me / revenge game. And I get it. Larry Nance, I think still, I would find him still playable, whether Sexton gets in or not. As I mentioned,
he's fine as well.
But I think he becomes, to me, a lot better play. Like I'm okay with him right now. He's a lot better play. And if somehow Sexton does play, Garland, I think, is unplayable at his DraftKings price. At his FanDuel price, you can get there, but I wouldn't have a single share of Garland if Sexton somehow gets in. Let's see here. All right, let's do some, we'll do money time here in 2 minutes. We'll talk a little bit more about Golden State, where one news item that we should hit on, because I think it does change the equation a bit. Draymond Green being back in EMac. And this is a spot yesterday that I was excited to have some Draymond Green, just because he had the Q tag on him. I thought there was a chance he would make it in a nice situation against Sacramento, who gives up a lot of production. And a guy like Draymond, I think, could have had a nice day in that game, in that matchup, even if he didn't shoot a lot or, get a lot of positive results with shooting as he normally does. In this spot, EMac, though, I don't see the need to go to Draymond Green. I actually don't like the pricing for Golden State overall. I think Wiggins looks okay to me, and Wiseman I'm willing to take the stab on again, just because he sort of underperformed yesterday, but still on the year, 1.03 fantasy point per minute guy, projected for 27 minutes from Awesemo today. I think there's better Wiseman days to come, even with Draymond back in the lineup, maybe even a better day, because Draymond finds it for some easy rim runs. But Wiggins and Wiseman are the ones that I like, EMac. How about you?
Yes, it's not really going to be Kelly Oubre at this point. Jordan Poole, price is ticking up. We know what we're getting with him. He's perfectly serviceable. I like him a little less than I did last night, but he's still okay. Did not really play him much on the main slate. Last night I had a fair amount. Or was it last night? Whatever our last late slate that we did together, and we were talking about him a lot. Give Yeah, that was last night. It's been a long day today.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Very long day today. So he's someone I'm not as excited about. I'm not really as excited about Kevin Huerter, who is being replaced by Bogdanovic in the starting lineup, if I remember seeing that news blurb correctly. So I'm leaning more towards the starters in this one. But back to your main question, if I had to forego someone, let's do it this way. I'll rank the Golden State Warriors. Wiseman, I think, is going to be number one for me, more on a point per dollar. And I just think, he'll have some good games, tough situation. I mean, Clint Capella is a monster in the paint. He's going to be a guy that can cause Wiseman to foul him, and that can always be a problem. But I'm still going to go Wiseman number one. I think Wiggins two, Draymond three, just because he can contribute in so many different ways. And then it's kind of a grab bag at that point. And there was a Nico Mannion moment. He kind of shoved that one in our face, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't feel bad about that one. The minutes were not blowing his way, and I was willing to get to not get Nico. But I'm glad to see him earning minutes. Hopefully he does get more reliable run, because that has not been the case. And the fact that he is coming off of a good day, I think could potentially squeeze a guy like Jordan Poole a bit more, where Nico Mannion's going to be competing for the point guard minutes that for Poole have resulted in a bit more upside. He's been shooting incredibly well, as we've talked about a lot on these shows, but the assist upside for Jordan Poole definitely gives him more of a reasonable dimension at his price point for DFS. But if Nico Mannion's in there, getting a few more minutes, Awesemo has been for 17 today. I think that does kind of hurt Poole enough to maybe find reason to get away here. But it is a halfway point of the show, and Colin Sexton ruled out.
You might want to wait for the update before money time happens.
So we need an ownership update here. Let's see. Yeah, the ownership, I'm pretty sure we've had Sexton in all day.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell if he was in or not.
All right, so let's wait for a projection update. Let's talk about the other things that we can talk about right now. But Sexton is out, so if you had him in any lineups, make sure you are getting him out immediately. And I guess if you could swap it all now, going to Darius Garland, I think still a bit of a risky move, where the price is up enough that you are certainly getting a bit of the ceiling chopped off. But EMac, if you were swap-optimizing right now, does Garland become a priority for you? I don't know if people will even have enough assets on the late slate to swap around at this point, but I think that he becomes a better play just ownership wise than Schroeder potentially, and I think has more upside. So that's one swap that I could see making. But for Garland, EMac, do you find him to be a swap-optimizer priority play?
I don't know that he's a priority play. I think you could utilize something to, if you have 2v2s or 3v3s left, and you're right, there's not a lot of ownership going to these late guys on the main slate, but some combination of Bogdanovic and Garland, and then use whatever you have left to upgrade that other position. That would be a way to do it, because Bogdanovic is the other news that wasn't quite expected and came out late enough that people would have the same options they do right now as they did then. That would be my recommendation. Or if you wanted to go away from Jordan Poole, you could maneuver things to get, the cough drop. You could maneuver things to get to Garland.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And yeah, Garland, certainly if you have the roster capability to switch to Garland, I think that's a decent move. People in the chat asking about Schroeder. I can't give you guys a full assessment until we get a minutes update. I'm just going to refresh here to see in case whoever's doing the projections right now is hanging closely by, but not quite yet. But I do think that if you have Schroeder, I don't know that you need to force a global swap. I guess if you're feeling like your lineup is a little bit chalkier, I think in particular, you might want to go to Garland. And I would still overall favor going to Garland. I guess if you like Schroeder, though, I wouldn't suddenly dislike Schroeder or massively like Garland more. I just think you're getting less ownership for probably a higher ceiling, and definitely a higher ceiling than people would have anticipated starting the night.
That's definitely a good way to look at it.
All right. And let's see. It's we'll give out the ownership as soon as we get an update here for the top five. Of course, if you always want to get the projections update and ownership update for the night slates, for the main slates, for really every slate that is available and has viable DFS tournaments out there, make sure you go to awesemo.com/join. A lot of packages on there, the weekly packages. We also have some good deals going for MLB right now, more that I'll talk about coming up after the halfway point of this show. But make sure you are going to awesemo.com/join if you're not a member, just to see what's available out there, because it's going to help you out a bunch. And we'll give you guys some ownership as well here. Got 300 people 350 people, in the live chat right now. So smash that like button, guys, here, and we will give you guys an ownership update as soon as it comes through. That much I promise you.
So for the main slate, just for kind of an update, I'm not that interested in I just lost it. Sunday, like Colin Sexton. Sorry, Shetty Osman. Because Sexton's out, to me, that does not make Osman a much better play. There is enough decent wing defenders, and whomever he is going to be matching up with, not going to be the easiest. Not that anybody's playing defense these days, but I don't see this as a great spot for Shetty Osman, in my opinion.
All right, we just got a projections update. So if you are a person who's an Awesemo Plus member, make sure to go over to the page right now and get the stuff. And I'm going to plunk it in and see how it affects my overall views on Cleveland, so we can give you guys the best possible take that we can here. And it is, I know it's money time, but there's no ownership, Tyler. I'll flip the hat, Tyler. I'll flip the hat. Tyler's lost when I don't flip my hat. That's the main thing. He feels like he's missing a part.
That's how he tells time.
True.
It's night. The sundial's gone. He needs money time.
It's funny. My mind was going to sundial too for some reason, but yeah, the sundial. Money time is nature's sundial. That's what we would call it. All right, let's see how Cleveland looks now. I got these projections in. All right, so Garland to me doesn't look great, and I think Garland for Awesemo doesn't look great either. 33.8 projection at 6,800 on DK. Man, I think there's certainly a ceiling for Garland, but it worries me because I haven't projected even worse. And that's, not changing the rates like I normally would do because we don't have enough time. Want to get it out here for you guys. But I think Nance really is the one that I feel the most confident. I know Garland's going to have more upside, but I'm just a little concerned looking at this. Like you still have Quinn Cook, you still have Lamar Stevens in the rotation, expected to get 10 minutes from Awesemo. Like there's enough guys who I think could chip away at Garland that he could be valued a little bit too much for the night slate. I think we've talked about this a lot. Garland may be overvalued for the night slate and undervalued for the main slate, if that makes sense for people out there.
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting dichotomy we've come across a few times on this show.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Juan Toscano Anderson versus someone like KCP or Dean Wade or some of the other guys that are available?
So I actually don't mind Dean Wade with the minutes that he's expected to get from Awesemo at 25 minutes. I think that's actually a decent play and one that, certainly could see a few more minutes going to a guy like Jared Allen. And that does squeeze Wade enough because he's basically playing the backup center now. Yeah, I think I would prefer Wade. I just think Toscano Anderson with Draymond in. Alex
Makes
only has
tougher.
Toscano Anderson getting 7 minutes. So I like that to me is like a total non-play.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's poor Juan Toscano. The highs of yesterday where he lived up to the hype of being the homeless man's Draymond, and then back today to just being kind of old mediocre version of himself. But yeah, that's how it looks. All right, let's see if we got ownership coming through while I change some lineups. But no ownership here, but I'll give you guys the top 5 before the injury. And when it changes here, I'm sure we're going to get an update before lock, but just want to make sure we give you guys something here because I'm a man of my word. I want to live up to the half of the bargain we usually give you guys. But the top 5 prior to Sexton being rolled out on DraftKings: Trae Young, number 1 at 51%, Dennis Schroeder at 47%, Kyle Kuzma at 45%, Andrew Wiggins at 44%, Jordan Poole at 43%. EMac, out of those 5 guys, who do you think would end up being cut because of Sexton being out and Garland going up? And I think it would be Jordan Poole and maybe a little bit off of Dennis Schroeder.
I think those two. Who'd you say? Did you say you said Anderson? Didn't you as well?
No, Young, Schroeder, Kuzma, Wiggins, and Poole.
Schroeder and Poole would be the 2.
Yeah, I think those guys probably lose enough ownership to Garland to sort of change where they are. And I think maybe Poole becomes a more interesting tournament play. Not a great projection for him today, but a guy who should be in the mix. And then the top 5 on FanDuel, again, before the Sexton ownership or the ownership being ruled out. So we'll keep an eye on, see if it gets an update here coming up the next few minutes. But unfortunately, when these things happen late, sometimes it's just tough to get everything going with all the moving pieces. Draymond Green, number 1 on FanDuel, 75%. Trae Young, number 2 at 69%. Andrew Wiggins, number 3 at 64%. John Collins, number 4 at a bad power forward spot on FanDuel, 62%. And Kyle Kuzma at 60%. And Sexton was projected for 57%. So that's going to open up a lot at shooting guard, actually. I would guess that Wiggins probably goes up.
We just got update.
Oh, there we go. All right. So let's see how this looks then. So we disregard all those numbers and I'll just read them all again. As always, by the way, when you get the ownership projections, go to awesemo.com/join and you can get the stuff for yourself. So you don't have to rely on me reading things quickly and scrambling about. But number one, Trae Young now at 58%, Dennis Schroeder, number two at 45%. So his ownership did not go down. Bogdan Bogdanovic, 45%, Kyle Kuzma, number four at 41%, and Montrezl Harrell, number five at 41%. That's interesting. So Garland, they're not anticipating Garland to get up that high. Garland just being rostered by a third of the field. So EMac, if you were to account for that here and the fact that I guess people maybe just can't pivot to Garland fast enough for the night slate, I'm sure they'll get there for the showdown. Do you think that Garland is a more interesting play if only a third of the people are on there?
Absolutely. That's going to tip the scale for me. And I'm now going to go over the field.
Yeah, I was going to omit Garland from my lineup, but I just think that seems low enough that I don't mind getting there. And yeah, I do like the way this lineup looks. So I'm going to keep Garland in and maybe swap around something else. On FanDuel, the top five ownership projections: Andrew Wiggins, number one at 80%, Trae Young, number two at 78%, John Collins, number three at 76%, Draymond Green, number four at 74%, and Kyle Kuzma, number five at 60%. So as we just guessed, and then it came through, but Wiggins taking a big jump up at shooting guard on FanDuel. And then the other pivots that you're going to have at shooting guard are not quite that good. You'll have Talen Horton-Tucker, who I would not play at his price point. Kevin Huerter, who's been benched for Bogdan Bogdanovic, not the best play at this point. Still in play, but not a great one. Wesley Matthews there, Damian Lee. I guess EMac, out of these guys who were viable or I guess in play on FanDuel, we have Wiggins, Horton-Tucker, Huerter, Wesley Matthews, Damian Lee, Isaac Okoro, and Tony Snell, I guess. Is there anybody there who you would consider a priority? I think it's got to be Wiggins at this point.
It's got to be Wiggins.
Yeah. That's a lot of ownership for Wiggins, but it does seem justified just because there's nothing else there.
Yeah, that's kind of a disaster.
Yeah, that's FanDuel late slates are pretty ugly, but this is one that this one is also ugly now, and it gets uglier mostly because of the injuries and those guys being rolled out. But yeah, definitely to me, not my favorite place to play for night slates. For the main slates, I think you get a lot more utility out of playing on FanDuel. But for that one, I'm not the biggest fan, I would say. EMac, any final thoughts for the night slate itself? Because we are going to talk more about Cleveland, more about the Lakers, more about the showdown game here, which has, I think, a 30K up top tournament on DraftKings and I think a decent single game on FanDuel as well. But is there any final thoughts, I guess, in particular for the Atlanta game? Because Atlanta Golden State locking here in 2 minutes. And I think we've talked enough about these guys, but any priorities for you amidst Atlanta? I feel like maybe this is the one part we didn't talk about enough.
No, and I'm trying to figure out why this won't let me make one more lineup. It's annoying. Priorities for Atlanta would be, well, Trae Young is the guy I'm kind of trying to get to. Clint Capella is second. Bogdanovic is third for me. Those were the three I was intentionally going to. There is nobody else, and of all the other players, I have 14% of anybody else that's on Atlanta at the highest. So they are not where I'm going. The high guys are Young and Bogdanovic are at 50% each. I'm making 22 lineups, and Capella's on 32. My highest owned player is going to be Harrell at 64. Garland, I'm going over at 64. Dennis Schroeder, 50. Kuzma, 50. Jordan Poole, I ended up going with 50. I started looking at the rest of those backcourt guys, and I got scared. James Wiseman, 50. Wiggins, 36. So I don't really have people standing out super heavy, but I've got a whole bunch of guys right around 50, which I think will be interesting. If I can put the right combination together, we could see something good.
Yeah, Bogdan Bogdanovic is just the one that I think is a priority for me from Atlanta, just because I think he's really decently projected here, just getting 28 minutes today from Awesemo because he's picking up that start. Kevin Huerter going to have, less time overall, but still in for 27 minutes. So I think he's a tougher play to get to, but I do think the price point opens up some things for the night slate. So that's what I would keep in mind for that game. But this one's about to lock in 1 minute. So if you haven't gotten your lineups in for the Atlanta Golden State part of things, especially, make sure to get those guys in now and play some of these priority adjacent plays. And we will talk a little bit more about the showdown here. So one more half hour left in this one. And we got the Cavs starting lineup: Darius Garland, Cedi Osman, Isaac Okoro, Larry Nance, and Jarrett Allen. So that is, I think, what it was last game and what you'd expect for today. So that's the one that's going to go.
You know that we do have the NBA, or pardon me, the March Madness in addition to NBA, but March Madness standalone starting up again tomorrow with the Sweet 16, $9.95 for the remainder of the tournament. That gets you, let's see, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and then you get, of course, the Final Four and the National Championship game. Betting content as well as DFS content. Jump on in, $9.95.
Yeah, and then there's also some fun deals coming up for the MLB opening day, which is on April 1st. And there's a deal for you at awesemo.com/join. You can use the promo code starting9. That's starting with the number 9. And you can get a 9-day, I think it's a 9-day package here. Yeah. This gives you access to everything we have to offer for MLB DFS, including player projections, ownership projections, the top stacks, tool, the lineup builder, and premium Slack channel, and more. And the offer is valid through April 9th. So stop guessing, start winning, join Awesemo Plus NBA today. And that's, I feel like the read doesn't actually say, I think it's, get your first 9 days. It was something I called out correctly, but get your first 9 days there for $9.
Because there's 9 players.
Yeah, there's starting 9. Starting 9, also a very popular podcast by my good friend Jared Carabas. So that's lots of positive things there combining for one, but definitely MLB heating up big time next week. So make sure that you are getting in there using that promo code starting9 at awesemo.com/join. Let's see, Kingslayer saying Capella going to pop off. Capella will pop off if Golden State's really bad. And I think that's one correlation play that I never mind, but we'll see how that goes because that game is starting now. But we have the Showdown, EMac, and as always with the Showdown, we got to talk about some of the top plays, which are going to be different occasionally from some of the main slate plays that you're going to have. And I'm just going to look at the ownership. We'll give you guys also the ownership for the Showdown and single game here, the top 5 owned plays coming up in about 14 minutes. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to get it yourself, that is available for you at awesemo.com/join too. So get in there now. But some of the captain plays, EMac, does look like we'll give away the chalk captains here on DraftKings, but Montrezl Harrell, Jarrett Allen, 2 of the more popular captain plays for this slate. And I would think that this does reflect Darius Garland as well, being the guy who should get more run as the primary ball handler for Cleveland. Garland, to me, being a 10%, I think I'm giving away a little too much here, the captain ownership, but this is just how I'm thinking about it. But Garland being lesser owned than 2 of the big men here, I think Harrell's a fine play today for the main slate or for the Showdown. But I would be intrigued by Garland when you're saving about 7% of that captain ownership. I think it's a pretty good number. So who would be your captain choice? And would it be Garland for you? Or is there somebody else here who strikes your fancy?
I think it's actually going to be Garland. I think you've called that one out appropriately. I know they were mentioning in chat, Taylor Horton-Tucker, watch out for him. He's only played 19 minutes each of the last 2 games. That's a little bit concerning. Yeah,
I agree. Horton-Tucker was a guy that I think his price point was working pretty well for me for the main slate. And for the night slate. And I just didn't want to get there. I think for the Showdown, it's still a little egregious. Let me just make sure that I'm looking at this correctly, but Horton-Tucker, 6,600. Yeah, I think that's kind of the same thing. It's not really a value. I think Cedi Osman is probably a more reliable play, even though he does disappear at times. Like he's going to be starting, going to be getting a decent amount of run.
And I gave him the kiss of death. Every time I do that, he spouts off for 30 to 40 fantasy points. I've done it 3 times in writing. Now I've done it on air. You guys use that information as you will.
Yeah, I just think that overall, I don't know. I think there are better plays than going to Taylor Horton-Tucker. I know he's had the upside days, but they have not shown a predilection to give him a ton of minutes every game. And I think Gasol coming in somehow, the trickle down just isn't great for him. Still projected for 22 minutes from Awesemo, so I think he's probably more viable for Showdown than he was for the night slate itself. But like he would have been for me a 3.9x value for the night slate. Whereas for Showdown, if he gets you enough raw points, I think that's the main thing. And if his 22 or whatever fantasy points that he ends up getting today is enough, I think that could be okay in Showdown, but still wouldn't be one. He's just always overowned. People just love THT too much.
It's the catchy nickname.
It is always the catchy nickname. That definitely does help a guy out. One guy that I would also consider a captain, and we saw the upside the last game without Colin Sexton, is Larry Nance. And I don't think he's necessarily as great of a captain because you do have Darius Garland being a little bit less owned than he probably should be. But EMac, we had Larry Nance put up 47.5 fantasy points, had respectable amount of usage in that game, 16%. The rebounding was really the thing for him. Also got 3 stocks, 2 steals, 1 block in that game, and 5 assists too. And I think the assists could go higher, though granted this was against Chicago, who we talked about a lot this year is not a great defense. But is Larry Nance a guy you would consider a captain at all, or would you prefer him at a utility spot, or would you prefer to not have him at all?
I've made my Larry Nance captain lineup. Funny enough, it is going to be Larry Nance. It's going to have Garland, and it's going to have Dean Wade from the Cleveland side. On the Lakers side, it is Kuzma, Harrell, and Schroeder. I figure at least 4 of those guys should be closing.
That is exactly what I was thinking as a lineup.
We didn't even play Guess Chris Spags lineup.
No, that is too obvious a lineup. That's why I'm wondering too if maybe going to Garland's the better move, because at least it gets.
Now I'm going to make the version with Garland.
You know, it's the exact same thing. You get Schroeder in there, yep. Garland captain, Wade, Nance, Harrell, Kuzma. Oh man, so that Wade, Nance, Harrell, Kuzma part is going to be, and I guess Schroeder too is going to be highly owned. Regardless. Well, all right. So you got to get creative there. So if we're both thinking that one, what is the build like if Jarrett Allen's the chalk captain? I'm actually curious what that would look like. Yeah, Allen. Let's see. So you get Allen. Let's try to prioritize the same play as Harrell, Schroeder, Garland, Nance. So if you put Allen at captain with Harrell, Schroeder, Garland, Nance, you're leaving behind 3,500, which can get you a Dudley, a McGee, a Kaycock, a Dotson, a Quinn Cook. So that's pretty ugly. I really don't know that an Allen at captain would be my first choice, especially with all the ownership that's going to be there.
Wait, I just closed out. Not JaVale, right?
No, JaVale's gone. JaVale.
Yeah, you said McGee.
Oh, what is that? I was just listing off names, honestly.
Okay. Well, then that's fine. Chat was pointing out that you hadn't said Anderson when I thought you said Anderson. So it's like,
I was reading off the names, but yeah, McGee is available. Point being is he's under the price point, and then he's obviously not playable, but you're basically playing somebody you have to play a Lamar Stevens, a Quinn Cook, or a JaVale McGee who's not on the team.
Right.
And worth pointing out too, because I think some people were confused earlier, Andre Drummond not available for the Cavs. He got bought out by the Cavs, and he's not on the Lakers yet, even though it's one of his rumored destinations. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Lakers lineup came out here. What did somebody say? Somebody in the chat said Kaycock is starting. That doesn't seem like that's the case. It's Schroeder, Caldwell Pope, Kuzma, Morris, and Gasol. Gasol playing in the back-to-back, but probably limited, I think, a good amount. Let me just make sure that I know he's limited to 15 yesterday, but I need to make sure that was actually what he played. Yeah, limited to 15 yesterday, played 15 yesterday. Maybe if he gets up a minute or two, but I don't think he gets above 20. So Gasol probably not in play too much today.
All right. I did my version of the Jarrett Allen lineup.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the same one that you did, but I did Allen and Osman are my only 2 Cleveland Cavs. And then I went Kuzma, Harrell, Schroeder, and Caldwell Pope, leaving 500 on the table.
Okay. Yeah. I get the Caldwell Pope one. I think that's probably the play you can get to more. I don't love Allen at captain. I just don't. I know he's had the upside before, but I just don't know that he's the one that benefits the most from Sexton being out. And you still have Nance in there. Like if Nance were out, I think Allen has a better shot.
We know what we do need to do. We need to make an Alex Awesemo Caruso Baker captain lineup.
That is a very low probability outcome, I would say, but I would imagine you could get everybody on the slate, including the guys who aren't available anymore, like LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Let's just see how much we would be leaving on the table with our friend here. So we put in Alex. Let's go Kuzma, Harrell, Schroeder, Garland, and we have 8,600 left. We go Nance, we leave 1,200 on the table. That would be a difference maker. But then what if we said, let's put Nance in the captain spot. And then we still have enough plenty for Caruso. Oh, we're 100 short for Caruso. Nice. So that's going to make us get off one of these other guys. Garland probably will be popular. What if we were to go, I don't want Taylor Horton Tucker though. I'd rather have Garland. Would you go away from Harrell, Kuzma, or Schroeder?
I would go away from Kuzma out of that group. And I know Kuzma's had some good games recently.
Go away from Kuzma gets us Taylor Horton Tucker. And that's like a direct pivot. No, but it's a direct pivot away from him.
It is. That's fair. Minutes wise too. That is a direct pivot. And Kuzma's been playing so many minutes. I would be afraid of getting less than him or less in the field of him. But I think if I were putting in one lineup, Kuzma would be the guy I'd move away from, just because I think Harrell and Schroeder are going to have better days at some point soon. And I think that does pull away from Kuzma enough where, like, Kuzma's the most expensive guy out of three. I don't think he should be the most expensive guy out of all three of those Lakers.
Let's see here. Who was on the Lakers in 2017?
Jacob asking, is Osman starting? Osman is starting. So that is that was the news we got here. The Cavs lineup we gave out a second ago, but Garland, Osman, Okoro, Nance, and Allen are the five for the Cavs.
That's Gary Payton, the original or junior. God, I was looking at the Lakers 2017 roster, and I saw Gary Payton's name popped up, and all of a sudden I had flashbacks to Gary Payton Sr.
Yeah. No.
So think about this. This was 4 years ago. Okay. Tell me which players shock you that are on the Lakers. So I'm going to say some names. Lonzo Ball. No, it shouldn't. He was a rookie. Andrew Bogut. Corey Brewer. Thomas Bryant, now with the Wizards. Alex Caruso was a rookie as well. I didn't realize he's been on the Lakers for 4 years. KCP, I hadn't realized how long he'd been on the Lakers. Jordan Clarkson, Luol Deng, Tyler Ennis, Channing Frye, Josh Hart. Again, these are guys that all played or were active at some point. Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Brook Lopez, Larry Nance, Julius Randle, Isaiah Thomas, which is wild. This can't be right. Was he really? Oh, yeah, because that was they did all those swap trades. It's just wild seeing some of these names. And Zubac. There's a lot of people that are still active in the NBA that ran through the Lakers that time that are no longer on the Lakers. Josh Hart. Mm-hmm. That's pretty crazy.
Antoine Murphy, I guess we got two questions here. Sure. Jacob Kimball asking, is Osman worth taking a shot on or no? And Antoine Murphy saying Dean Wade over Osman. I would agree with that. I think I prefer Dean Wade too over Osman by just because the pricing, I think, is really the main thing there. Projection wise, they're pretty close. So I think Osman is useful in a showdown build. Like, he's one of the guys I think you mix in, but I wouldn't expect Osman to be a viable captain play. And if you're going to get Wade for cheaper and you're going to get him potentially for less ownership too, I think that's why I would prefer to go to Dean Wade. And you're saving about 10% in ownership. Like, I think that's, to me, worth going to Dean Wade on, where he is playing the backup center. And I think that has some degree of value.
So anyway, retracting my original point, there are quite a few people that remember Larry Nance, including several of his fellow rookie teammates.
Anthony Bernard given a lineup out saying Captain Schroeder, Garland, Harrell, Kuz, Allen, Stevens. I don't know that I would give Lamar Stevens a ton of utility for even for a showdown slate, but that's I think a contrarian lineup. And I think you did two things there. I'll use that lineup as an example there. When you go to Schroeder at captain, you are getting to a much less ownership or a much higher ownership number than some of the other guys who are going to be a captain. Schroeder's projected for, actually, he's still decently owned, but you're still 14% captain. So you're getting away from 86% of the field there right away. And then you're also getting a guy like Lamar Stevens in the mix, who's going to be projected for 1% ownership. I do think Lamar Stevens is 1% owned for a reason. The 1K guys, for the most part, guys who aren't going to play unless there's a blowout or aren't going to play meaningful minutes unless there's a blowout, I think tend to be not the best usage of a spot. But Stevens does produce. I think I might be more inclined to take Quinn Cook at 3% ownership if you could find the money to get there. But I think that does fit the criteria, Mac. If you have Schroeder at captain and you get one guy under 10%, I think that's a unique build, or at least a more unique build than one that you maybe even could, maybe if not solo win a showdown, could at least split it with 5 guys instead of 100.
5 guys is always good. Get the Cajun fries, a little cheeseburger with sauteed onions and sauteed mushrooms. Very good. The last 3 times that Stevens has played, he went 17 minutes in a relatively close game, 12 minutes in a blowout loss, and 5 minutes in their last game, which they won against Chicago.
Yeah, so there you go. Looking for any questions here. If you got any questions?
32, 19, and 4 fantasy points. So there's some wiggle room there.
Let's see.
They're
For
saying
fun,
low energy Spags and EMac. Well, it's Friday, and this show actually was 2 shows. We did the first half of it, and now we've done the second. And it's been a long week, so here we go. 11 games on the slate tonight.
there's only so much energy you have, and when you also, for me, when you have a top 25 lineup on FanDuel that has, I think, a very good construction, other than Jalen Brunson putting up 12.8 fantasy points. That's contributing to my energy being down a little bit right now. But it's hard to get too much energy, honestly, for a Cavs Lakers showdown game that I feel like was planned on the assumption you'd have Colin Sexton even, let alone LeBron and AD in the mix. It's not the best scheduling here for a showdown, but we got to make it work when we can.
There we go. Manny C says, we're soldiers. Thank you, Manny C. We appreciate that. Peter DeLea says, EMac on point with that burger. It's my favorite. That's what I always get.
We had one question in chat. No, let's do the ownership on the showdown. Then we had a question in chat about the best utility play under 7,500 for Brent God on DK. We'll answer that one after the break here, where it's still money time here for the second straight slate. And we're going to give you guys the top 5 owned plays for the showdown on DraftKings and the single game on FanDuel. And number 1 owned looks like it'll be Montrezl Harrell, 75%. Number 2, Jared Allen at 74.5%. Number 3, Kyle Kuzma at 72%. Number 4, Dennis Schroeder at 69.7%. And number 5, Darius Garland, still looking a bit under-owned at 58%. And that is also basically the order of them for captain too. So keep that in mind if you want. But EMac, with that 5 there, if you had to build a lineup right now, Harrell, Allen, Kuzma, Schroeder, Garland, which one would you leave out potentially to at least get rid of a portion of the field?
Leaving out Garland on this one. We're going to go Montrezl with our captain. Okay. I don't think we did a Montrezl captain version. So let's go Montrezl. You like Larry Nance Jr. Not that I don't, but I will go with him. You know, we have not said Markieff Morris. And I don't feel bad about it at all.
I had too much Markieff yesterday because of Marcus Morris being ruled out. And I think I've had my fill of Markieff for a while, but he's in play. I mean, he's playing minutes. Like, it's hard to argue that, but another guy, I guess, who's probably more in play for the showdown than he was for the night slate, I would think, just relative to pricing. But
I have to go with the 2K crapper. Here we go. Quinn Cook. Quinn Cook it is. Are you ready to hear this one?
Go for it.
Harrell at the captain, Larry Nance Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Dennis Schroeder, Jarrett Allen, and Quinn Cook. Leaving 100 on the table. There we go.
All right, let's do the FanDuel ownership for the single game on there. The top 5, Kyle Kuzma, 77%. Number 2, Montrezl Harrell, 72%. Jared Allen, number 3 at 68%. Darius Garland, number 4 at 60%. Dennis Schroeder, number 5 at 57%. And then the MVP ownership is kind of all over the place, but Harrell's the lead MVP with Jared Allen not far behind. EMac, I feel like for me, both these are going to be, I would want less Kuzma. I think on FanDuel, the price is a bit more appealing than on DraftKings, but like Larry Nance is more expensive than Kuzma on FanDuel. I don't know that makes sense. But EMac, with that 5 there, Kuzma, Harrell, Allen, Garland, Schroeder, given the FanDuel single game format, who jumps out as a guy that maybe you'd want to get out of that 5?
I am going to say it is Kyle Kuzma. I am going to agree with you. My next one would be Harrell. I'm trying to think of FanDuel, and you want blocks and steals upside. Since there were 3, you do not get the double-double bonus. So that sort of knocks that pair of guys out a little lower. You can figure Garland and Schroeder probably get some steals. Nance gets both. Jared Allen gets blocks. So those are the 2 by default I think I'd move away from. Now, I think they're both fine as the star option or the pro option, but just not the top option.
Alan King asking, can Trae Young give me 106 points? Only if Jalen Brunson can give me 30, I hope Trae Young gives you 106.
I'm scared to look. I'm assuming that the Milwaukee game's over and Giannis had 33 DK points, and that's all I'm going to get.
Oh, was that? Oh, let's take a look here. I played a good amount of Giannis, but not as much as Harden. Harden was I think logically a lot of people's guys. Oh, Zion put up 65.5 today. Jesus.
That might be his career best. Yeah, that the Bucks actually lost to the Celtics.
And
ouch.
Giannis. Where is Giannis?
Giannis was 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, no blocks, no steals, 27 minutes. Looks like they packed it in. And Pat Connaughton was second on the team with 28 minutes off the bench. Bryn Forbes played 23 minutes. And Sam Merrill played 20.
Porzingis had a nice, or is having a nice day. I guess that game is still going on, but boy, he really cannibalized any opportunity at all that poor Jalen Brunson could have gotten, I guess, when you're as good as Porzingis was today. So good for Porzingis, bad for us. This question that was asked about the 7,500 on DK and under. Let me just pull this up, go back to here real fast. 7,500 and under. So that's basically everybody besides, oh no, I'm on the wrong thing. Hold on. All right, here we go. That's everybody besides Garland, Schroeder, Sexton, Harrell, Kuzma, and Allen. Obviously, Sexton not in play anymore because he's out today. Under 7,500, it's Larry Nance for me, EMac, but I guess other guys who he could play under 7,500 on DK, Nance, Horton Tucker, Morris, Osman, Matthews, Caruso, Gasol, Okoro. Do any of these guys seem more appealing to you than Larry Nance?
No, Caruso would be the only one I played. The hard part is even when we were saving that salary, it didn't do that much for us. It allowed us to get essentially the same core lineup as we had, save for one player and maneuvering around at the captain spot. It's kind of going to be some overlap tonight, it looks like, with the way the injuries fell on DK.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult to win this one solo on DK today based on the constructions, based on the fact that EMac and I made the same lineup within 1 second of looking at it. But yeah, definitely not. It's only 30K. So the good news is you will be sharing less money if you finish first in that one. Let's see. Sam Merrill is Mike Campbell's new friend for putting the game over the total. Yeah, that's how it goes. Wiggins hurting me. It's too early to be mad at Wiggins now. You can't be. That game.
No, we got time. There's still time for the Pacers and the Mavericks to go into overtime. So you're saying there's a chance, Chris? Come on, buck up, little campers. We have PMR remaining.
Stack in the premium Slack asking, better Showdown DFS strategy at captain. Would you spread the exposure out or take a stand? I tend to be team take a stand more of trying to get away from the chalky captains. I think for football, especially, that's the way that I approach it. Now, you're asking Showdown DFS strategy, obviously for NBA, but you didn't say NBA, so I'll say that for everything. I think it applies for basketball too, unless there's a gigantic gulf between the guy who's going to be the top projected play. I think you're going to do better just kind of mixing and matching captains, but not including the top owned guy. But EMac, how would you handle it? Do you get a little bit of everybody a captain? I also normally avoid the crap players a captain too. I know sometimes people try to do that to get guys in, higher dollar guys at utility, but I think crappy captains and the highest owned captain is really my main exclude.
The only time I'll really make more than just a handful of hand-built lineups is when we get to the playoffs. And then at that point, mostly my goal is to try to get at least 4 on DraftKings is where I usually play, at least 4 of the players, including the captain, someone that is going to be in the closing lineup. That is the vast majority of my lineups. And then I'll build, maybe 10% where one team outscores the other, or maybe 10% or vice versa. And then a little bit where, hey, what happens if this guy gets hurt? Who's a backup that could step in? And if that happens in the first quarter or early in the second quarter, all of a sudden you get maybe a Taylor Horton Tucker doing well for a Kyle Kuzma or something like that. You try to plan for that contingency.
Shout out Alan King, just joined the NBA Express package. Glad to be a part of the family. Good to have you, Alan, and get in the premium Slack that is part of the Express package that honestly I think pays for really the entire package because you get news gods alerts in the NBA basketball news channel. And you also get all the guys talking in there, and the Express data itself is also going to be helpful too. But premium Slack, I think that alone really is your main value add if you are just getting that one, in addition to all the data and grade form and all those tools that we have. Let's see. Any final questions here?
Any good top shot moments?
Top shot moments today. I assume Darius Garland top shots are going to soar through the roof after he becomes a viable captain play.
Any upcoming pack drops?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I'm just asking the questions because I'm not a member.
No, I honestly didn't get a pack the last couple, and I have sold most of my moments other than the ones I have from the Mike Conley challenge. Tyler is holding up a lighter to signify sadness, joy, unclear.
He's surrendered.
But yeah, Top Shot not the best right now, for me at least. But I made enough money here. I put in $50 and I will profit at least a good amount more than that. So what can you do if the market crashes? Sorry to everybody else out there dealing with the market crashing on Top Shot, but
I didn't realize it had. It's a dip. It's a gully. It's just a teeny gully.
It's always darkest before the dawn. That's as Batman once told us. So just keep that going.
The hero we deserve. The hero we need.
Nate D saying, I got Garland. You want it? No, I think, in fact, guys like Garland are completely worthless unless you have their rookie moment. But that's my assessment on Top Shot, not being a pro at it by any stretch, or one of the guys, including my podcast host, some guys that he does shows with who've made 7 figures from it, like Jack Settleman. But actually, it's a fun fact for you, Mac. If you had to guess a music luminary of a certain generation who my pal Peter Overs that is having on his stream tonight, I think it already happened today, West Coast time. But if you had to guess who that would be, Mac, who do you think it would be?
Do you tell me the generation?
90s hip hop. Not Run DMC. It was Tyler's guess.
I don't. Rage Against the Machine.
That's a hip hop act.
Tony.
Ja Rule was on a stream.
Oh, really?
We were talking about, I guess he's selling NFTs now, including a Fire Festival NFT of some sort that went for 125 grand. So he is somehow making money off of Fire Festival again. So more power to Ja Rule doing streams. I'm now 1 degree removed from Ja Rule, I guess, again, because my old boss at Barstool also had some Ja Rule things. But
wasn't he in him? He was in him. Yeah, he's in the Fast and Furious, isn't he?
I think he had a guest spot in it, but Ludacris is the one who's in every.
I'm pretty sure he was in one as well.
He probably was in one. How did you not have Ja Rule in everything? I guess would be the question.
Well, now I have to look this up.
Jonathan Fisher asking Okoro, KCP, or Caruso. It's actually an interesting one. Let's see. Okoro I'd have at 17.8. Awesemo has at 17.3. Caruso 16.5. Awesemo has at 17.9. And then who's the third? Oh, KCP I have at 18.1, and Awesemo has at 18. So I guess looking at it cumulatively, or just off Awesemo's, it does seem like that would be KCP. But I don't love KCP.
We'll see. And I'm an original then, because Ja Rule was in the first one, the only one he was in. I don't think Ludacris was in that one, because I've only seen 2 or 3 of them, and I remembered he was in it. So
they swapped demise from Ja Rule to Ludacris. I guess he was the better value play. I guess one thing I could say for KCP that I think is a positive, the Cavs do give up 12% more corner threes than league average, and that has been historically when KCP tends to find a little more value, a little more upside. So he does project the best, and I guess that's it. I just like the minutes for Okoro, the fact that he's going to be getting run, and there's more theoretical opportunity for him to start to improve a bit more and show some more usage than he has overall in the year. But it does seem like the wins and the projection right now, I think the safest play has got to be KCP.
I know who Tyrese is, chat. That Ja Rule and Tyrese are entirely different guys. Ja Rule was in the first one with Jordana Brewster. She's kind of cute.
Okoro, yuck. Yeah, I mostly feel that way about Okoro, except that he has these random high upside games. And if he is going to have a random upside game, having not having Darius Garland, having Colin Sexton out of the lineup with how much he chucks in a given night, that is a recipe for Okoro doing better, but certainly not a sure thing by any stretch.
Tyrese was in the first one.
No. There you go. I'm glad you're learning so much about Fast and Furious lore.
He returned as Roman Pierce in... Oh, he was in a bunch of them. I haven't seen.
Oh, Tyrese is in a lot of them. Yeah, he's still in them till now, I think.
I've only seen the first 2. And I'm not counting Tokyo Drift, which was horrible.
Let's see. DJ Johnson asking KCP or Wade. For me, that is Wade. And again, these are just the median projections. So, if you're playing a lot of lineups, like don't treat this as like a lock and Wade. These are the guys who are like these are your tournament dart throws, your guys who, one could spike an upside more, but just try to give median projections if you're putting in one lineup or you're doing a single entry. So try to view it through that lens, but Wade looks better in Osmo's projection and in my projection. So I think Wade would be the one over KCP. And then the question from GB was Okoro or Wade. I think that's still Dean Wade. I'm surprised by how much Dean Wade interest I have, but I think the backup center minutes have a lot of value. And Awesemo being not that far off, a 20.9 projection for Dean Wade. Surprising, but it's a good number and a little bit lower than I have him at. Let's see. Tokyo Drift, best of the lot. I don't know about that, the Russia, but that's, if you're a big Bow Wow fan, I guess that's what you got going for you. Let's see. Tyler just having some fun in the chat. Tyler, I'm just going to read your chats and just see how you feel.
So here we go. Ja Rule, they offered him $500,000 to be in the second one. He got 15 grand to be in the first one. He decided not to be in it.
He should have gotten some points for himself. They should have given him 1%, I'm sure, to do it for cheap.
So then he said, I was infuriated by, this is the director talking, or the producer. He says, then I made a call to Ludacris.
Ludacris has made, I'm sure, crazy money off of that franchise. Yeah. And honestly, the movies were like decently popular when they first came out, but from 4 on is really when they were like massive money making machines. So I'm sure that's another Ja Rule miss. I wish I had done the show with Pete. I could have asked Ja Rule and be like, hey, how do you feel missing out on all that? It must not be great.
I want to be on the show with
NFTs, huh?
Yeah, I want to ask Alex Brown how he felt about Beast Mode. He was one of the guys that didn't tackle or that missed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Marshall. I didn't know it either until I was watching it the other day, and it said some 96 Brown. I'm like, I think Alex Brown played for the Saints, and I went and looked it up. I'm like, oh my God, that's AB! I can't wait. Hope he's on the show again. I'm going to do a super chat or something. Not really to rub it into him, but it's like, what did you guys know? But what did you think? That play was amazing. Even watching it now, that was 10 years ago. And you just watch it. You're like, how did everybody miss? And the line, I even forgot Matt Hasselbeck was the quarterback on that play. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I'm a Seahawks fan, and you had asked me who the quarterback. I would not have guessed Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah, definitely not a moment to remember fondly if you're a Saints fan, but if you're a Seahawks fan, probably one of the best ones in your entire team history. We are locked, though, EMac. Thank the sweet Lord Jesus. Give the people the plugs for what's coming up for you this weekend.
I've got the NBA Live Before Lock on Saturday with T. McBee. We will have, I believe, Chris Spags, the warm-up act. Hopefully he'll get a lot of likes for us with his co-pilot. And then it'll be Eric Lindquist and I on Live Before Lock Sunday. I believe there's only 3 games on Sunday for the main slate, a 7, an 8, and a 9, if I remember correctly. The main slate tomorrow does start at 8 o'clock, and I think there are 8 games on it. It's relatively big, but it's compressed.
All right, yeah, so tune into that tomorrow. As EMac mentioned, I will be on the deeper dive with, I believe, our pal Greg Ehrenberg. So a fun deeper dive here. We're going to have a very sassy show leading into EMac and Terry for Live Before Lock. Make sure
if he doesn't shave, you have to call him Nerd Amish Greg.
There you go. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Of course, make sure to use that promo code starting9 if you want to get in for the NBA deals. 9 days for $9 at awesemo.com/join. The promo code starting9 with the number 9. So go check that out. Shout out to our producer, Tyler. Follow at EMac DFS. Follow at Chris Spags. Follow at Awesemo_com. I'll be back with you guys again tomorrow. So enjoy your nights and good luck. Bye.
I see Elliott and Ludacris.